Hello, this is Ernest Burley, your CIA, your cool insurance agent, back at you again with some more great information on insurance. I'm a licensed insurance agent with over 30 years experience in the industry with clients all across the country. So from the East Coast to the West Coast, from the North to the South, I have clients all over the country in the arena of insurance. My experience in insurance ranges from different areas of insurance, including life insurance, long-term care, auto, home, church policies, business policies, disability insurance, renters policies, condos, et cetera. So pretty vast array of insurance products and services that we can help you out with objective and clear information. The purpose of this podcast is to empower you, to educate you, to enlighten you with objective and unbiased, very clear information so you can make the right decisions for yourself and for your family. I want to put you in an advantageous position so no one can take advantage of you, right? You put yourself in the positive position to say, okay, I know what I'm looking at, I know what I'm talking about, and I'm going to make sure I make the right decisions for my family because I have the right information. So that's what this podcast is all about. Okay. So let's get right at it. That's the intro. I don't like long intros. Today's podcast is titled Bait Rates. Don't fall for them. Okay. So today we're going to talk about receiving life insurance rates. That's for any rate, really. You want to make sure that you're getting the right rate and not getting the runaround. But with life insurance, there's a certain amount of information that's required in order to get you a good rate. Okay. If the life insurance doesn't ask you certain questions, then you need to go in the other direction because either the person doesn't know what they're talking about or they have some type of ulterior motive. So if they don't ask you these questions that we're going to go over today, then there is probably a bait rate. They're probably just baiting you in and trying to get you into the pipeline and just trying to establish some quota or something of that nature. And you don't want to waste your time doing that. A bad quote really means nothing. If they can offer you a policy for $1 a month, it means absolutely nothing if the company's not going to offer you the policy for that. So that's why you don't want to just receive any old type of quote. You want a quote that's going to be somewhat accurate, because just because you get a low quote or a bait rate quote, it doesn't mean that you're going to get that particular rate on the policy. Okay. Now, what an accurate quote does do, not the bait rate quote, but what an accurate quote does is if you give full disclosure, right, get all the information that's necessary, then you can budget, like you can work within your budget and find out, okay, well, based on this rate, I can probably get this amount of coverage. So it's a good way to figure out ahead of time what you're more than likely eligible for and how much it's going to be, what the premium is going to be. Now you have to give full disclosure. You can't like give false information because when it comes underwriting time, then of course that's going to be found out. But if you give full disclosure and these questions are asked and the information is input, then you should get a pretty accurate quote instead of just a bait rate. If they don't ask you these questions, it's a bait rate, because if they don't know this information, there's no way they can give you an accurate quote. I'm just telling you. Okay. So here are the 6 things that they need to ask you, a life insurance agent, to give you an accurate quote or some type of quote that's going to be in the vicinity of what you'll probably end up paying. So the first question is gender. Okay, that makes sense, right? Gender. And the reason why, because male versus female, life insurance for women is less than men, because statistically men die sooner than women. So that makes a difference as to the gender. So sometimes you may give a name for someone, and if it's a unisex name, you can't figure out the gender, then that needs to be something that's figured out ahead of time, right? Because we want to make sure you put the right gender in for the individual that's getting the quote, because it will make a difference on the rate. Next thing, date of birth. Of course, we know the older you are, the more life insurance costs. So the date of birth makes a difference. And you want to make sure that that person has either your age or date of birth. They don't necessarily need your date of birth, but they definitely need your age to put that into the computer to figure out, okay, that's one more component of what we need to get an accurate rate quote. Okay, so that's 2. The first one is the gender, right? They need to know your gender. The second one is your date of birth or your age. The third piece of information, or third criteria, is your height and weight. That's your build, B-U-I-L-D. So your build, how your build is, makes a difference as to what quote you're going to receive. So for instance, say if you're 5'5", 135, then you're going to receive a different rate than someone who's 5'5", 220, right? Because of the build, right? Some people who are have weight issues, say they're height challenged. So if you're short for your weight, height challenged. Okay, I get it. But yeah, that makes a difference. So make sure that the person is asking you what your height and weight is, because that's going to make a difference on your rate. Now, here's a trick of the trade. Now, I've gone over this in a previous podcast, but hey, we're going to reiterate it. A trick of the trade, revisit it. So every company has a build chart, B-U-I-L-D, a build chart, which basically just has height and weight for the person. So if the person gives the height and weight, you can pretty much determine what type of rate they're going to get. Are they going to qualify for a standard rate, a discounted rate, a super discounted rate, preferred, select? Every company has its own, own name for it. Some people call it preferred, some call it super preferred, some call it select. So different companies have different verbiage for what they call their discounted rates. So everything being equal, if there are no health conditions or what have you, if the person's height and weight is given, everything else being equal, then you pretty much know what kind of qualification or what kind of rate that person is going to qualify for. Now, if you're very close to the next discounted rate, then you want to know that, because if you can lose that little couple pounds and lock in that low rate for the long haul, then that's what you want to do. So if you say you're 5'5", 135, and the next discounted rate is 5'5", 130, then maybe you can knock off that 5 pounds by the time they come out to weigh you. That's just water weight. So maybe you can knock that off. Now, if you're 20 or 30 pounds away from that next discounted rate, then I don't recommend you trying to knock off that much weight. But if you're really close, why not do that and lock in that rate for the long haul? So that's a trick of the trade to try and save you some money. Find out what the next discounted rate is for your height and weight, and see if you can, get within that category and get the next discounted rate. Okay, so that's the third criteria, right? We went over gender, that's one. The next one is what? Date of birth or age. The third one is height and weight. So the next criteria, the next question they should ask you is whether you use any tobacco products, because that makes a difference too. If you use tobacco products, then you're going to pay a much higher rate. Truthfully, for younger adults, like if you're 19, 20 years old or in your 20s, it's not that much of a difference. I shouldn't say that, because smoking is really bad. But it doesn't make that much of a difference for when you're really young. But when you start getting older, the rates, they increase substantially. So in your 30s, 40s, 50s, or what have you, then a smoker's rate is a much, much higher rate than a standard rate. And it also kind of knocks you out of, being able to get discounted rates. Now, actually, there are tobacco discounted rates like select tobacco or preferred tobacco. If a person's in very good health otherwise, but they smoke, they'll still get a tobacco rate, but you can get a preferred tobacco rate. Actually, it's going to be higher than a discounted rate without tobacco, but you can still get a discounted rate as a smoker, actually, but it's going to be more than a regular rate. So smoker, that's a question they need to ask if you use any tobacco products. Now, here's another thing. If a person smokes weed, what's weed? Marijuana. If you're a marijuana smoker, you may get a tobacco rating. It depends on the company. If you're a recreational user, like you'll use it infrequently, maybe once or twice a month or something like that, you may slide by and may not get a tobacco rate, but it depends. It depends on the company. So marijuana smokers, sometimes you do get a tobacco rate. A new trend out there now is hookah smoking. Hookah, I say nuka, no hookahs, okay? You think it's cool, it is not cool. It is not cool, okay? Because depending on some companies, they may give you a smoker's rate or a tobacco rate for using a hookah, for smoking a hookah. And some, different hookahs have different things in them that you smoke. I'm not a specialist on that by any means, but you have different things that you can smoke in the hookahs. But some companies, if you smoke a hookah, they're just going to give you a tobacco rating, and some of them will look at what you're actually smoking. So just stay away from smoking anything. That's the safe bet, okay? So that's another question, right? Tobacco use. The next question is health conditions. This is number 5, right? So we did number 1, gender. Number 2, date of birth or age. Number 3, height and weight. Number 4, tobacco use. Number 5 is health conditions. Do you have any health conditions? So that's like high blood pressure, diabetes, heart issues, cholesterol, things of that nature. And depending on the condition, you might have to fill out a questionnaire to get a more vivid or clear idea of what your rate will possibly be. So with diabetes, they're going to want to know, okay, is it type 1, type 2? How long have you had diabetes? Are you insulin dependent? What's your last A1C3 reading? A1C reading. So yeah, all that makes a difference. So if they haven't asked you if you have any health conditions, bait rate. Because all of that stuff does make a difference as to what kind of rate you can qualify for, or even if you're eligible, to tell you the truth. So you may not even be eligible. If a person is just trying to crank out life apps because they're trying to get you in a pipeline to meet some promo or what have you, that does you no good whatsoever. You don't want a bait rate. You want something that's reasonable and practical within the information that you gave them. So that's what you want. Don't waste your time. They shouldn't be wasting their time. Make sure you don't get a bait rate, because if they ask you these questions, you should get a pretty decent rate. Now, here's where the I inquire comes in big time, right? So I told you about the choir, right? The choir is very important. So the choir is, when you're dealing with anyone in the professional realm, you want someone who's in the choir, CHOIR. That's my acronym for vetting individuals. So the C inquire stands for certifications or credentials. You want to make sure that they have credentials for what they're talking about. The H inquire stands for hours of experience. So you want them to have a certain amount of experience, so they kind of have some experience in what they're dealing with. The O inquire stands for objective. So of course you want them to be objective. And the I inquire stands for independent. So in this arena, we want the person to be independent, because some companies are much more conservative than other life companies. So if it's a conservative life insurance company, you're not going to want to go to them if you have certain health issues and conditions, because they may charge a much higher rate. There are some life insurance companies that are much more lenient with their underwriting. So that's what you want to do. You want someone who has access to multiple life insurance companies instead of just one or possibly two life insurance companies. Some people just have access to one company. That's it. That's all they can give you is one quote. You want to have multiple companies researched, because different companies have different criteria on underwriting, and some companies have better rates for whole life. Some companies have better rates for term, some better for IULs and universal life plans or what have you. So only do guaranteed universal life policies. We talked about that before, right? So you want to make sure that the person is independent and not tied to one company. And the R inquire stands for regulated, of course. So they should have a license and be regulated by the state if they're offering insurance. That's point number 5. Point number 6, of course, I shouldn't say of course. This sounds like a little odd, but state, they should want to know what state you reside in. Now, life insurance rates don't vary from state to state. It's not like property insurance, like your auto and home insurance, that varies from state to state and from county to county, right? If you live with one county, their rate's going to be different than in a different county. But with life insurance, the rates are standard across the board. Now, by state, as far as the criteria is concerned, some companies, some states have a smaller pool of life insurance companies. So for example, New York, there are a lot of life insurance companies that don't write insurance in New York. So if a person lives in New York, that shrinks the pool of companies that you have access to see what fits in the client's best interest. So that's why it makes a difference. So if they've accumulated all these rates for you and they haven't asked you what state you live in, the life insurance company may not be admitted in that state to even write the policy. So you want to make sure that the state is also something that they have asked you about, to make sure that you're not getting a bait rate or some rate that's not applicable. Okay. And that's it. Now, in a future podcast, we're going to talk about how to read a life insurance policy illustration, because it's ideal for you to know what you're getting. So if you can read the life insurance illustration, like the quote, the illustration, then you won't get taken, right? I've seen a lot of people get taken to where they thought they had one kind of policy, but it was totally not that. It was totally something else. But if you know how to read the illustration, you'll know exactly what you have, and you'll be able to vet that policy before you even get into it. Have them send you the illustration, look at it and be like, okay, yeah, that's what it is. Or no, this doesn't make sense. Why is this here? And ask the agent and have them explain that to you. So you don't get a bait rate or a bait quote or a bait illustration, right? You want to make sure what you asked for and what you need is what you got, as opposed to finding out at some later date that it totally wasn't what you wanted. Okay, that's critical. That is very important. That's it for today's podcast. Okay, I thank you guys for listening in. So our recap of today: pre-screen your life insurance agent by making sure they ask you those 6 questions we just went over. Your gender, your date of birth or your age, your height and weight, whether you're using the tobacco products or not, right? Your health conditions, if you have any health conditions, and what state you reside in. So those are things that they really need to ask you to make sure that you are receiving a rate that is probably applicable and not a bait rate. Very important. The takeaway for today, make sure your rate is not bait. Make sure your rate is not bait. That's the takeaway for today. So hopefully you've gotten some good information that will help you out with that. So I want to thank you guys for listening. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate y'all listening every week. We drop these podcasts and make sure that it has information in there to enlighten, educate you, to empower you to make good decisions for yourself and for your family. If please ask other people, like spread the podcast to other people and ask them to do the same. So on, so we can make these informative videos and podcasts go viral. Okay. If you want to connect with me, very easy to do that. The phone number to my firm is 301-262-2600. Again, that's 301-262-2600, or you can email me at ernestburleyjr@gmail.com. That's just my full name at Gmail. So ERNESTBURLEYJR@gmail.com. We'll connect. I'm more than happy to give you clear, objective information, and then you do what you want from there. Okay. All of my podcasts are on YouTube, so you can go click on my YouTube channel. I have different insurance podcasts talking about different topics: auto insurance, home, life, long-term care, different types of insurance, and also different topics that aren't insurance related, like real estate or real mistake, talking about real estate. So I have different podcasts on there that I think will help you out. And I have some 1-minute podcasts, not podcasts, but like just little 1-minute snippets that talk about various topics too, that can help you out also. So hopefully you'll take a look at that and check those out. Okay. So that's it. Hey, this is your CIA, your cool insurance agent, Ernest Burley, signing off. Until we speak again, or until we see each other again, or until we meet again, y'all take care and be safe out there. Okay. Take care. Bye-bye.